When you're getting started with lettering, there's some common mistakes that all beginners make that can really make your words look like turds. Come on, that's ridiculous. We're not doing that. In this video, I'm going to show you the most common beginner lettering mistakes and how to avoid them. I'm not saying turd again. I've been lettering professionally for nearly 20 years at this point, and I still find myself falling into some of these traps. Whether it's trying to letter a whole paragraph or messing up my visual hierarchy, or maybe just mixing in too many styles. These mistakes will make your lettering look, well, beginner. The good news is once you know what to look out for, you can fix it fast. And you can start to really enjoy drawing letters instead of just hating everything. But maybe that's just me. When you're first getting started with lettering, one of the biggest things you want to do is avoid choosing something that's just way too long. Choose something short. It's going to be fun. If you choose something long, it's going to be a bad time. There's too much to think about. You got to figure out what the emphasis is going to be and how to draw all these different things. And if you're not that comfortable drawing letters, and even if you are comfortable drawing letters, you're going to get annoyed when you got to draw 100 letters. It can get tedious. Choose something shorter or shorten it down. That way you can just focus on something quick and little, and you'll learn faster because you'll be able to do it faster-ish. You don't want to do something long. It sucks. That's all. That's all there is to say, right? I mean, what else? It's going to be too hard to do something long. But a bonus tip on that, if you do find yourself having to letter something that's really long, when you're working on the sketches, instead of trying to write it all out each time you sketch it, break the words down into shapes based loosely on the size of that word and use that to do quick iterative sketches so you can figure out your composition ahead of time. This will be crucial when you're doing something long because you got to get a whole bunch of words in there and you want it to not, feel like it gets jammed up randomly. You got to really plan it out when you're doing a lot of words, a long quote, which is another reason why you should stick with something short at the beginning, because then you don't have to worry about that aspect as much. The other issue with choosing something really long to start is that it's a gateway drug into the next mistake. And that mistake is throwing too many styles into one piece. You got all these words and you're like, I'm hand lettering, I'm doing illustrative lettering right now. And you start doing each word in a completely different style. And this just ends up looking like pure chaos. And there's no visual hierarchy anymore, and then just hard to read. It's a mess. Not every word needs to or should be emphasized or fancy or stylized. Some of the stuff has got to be simple. And that mistake of trying to cram too many styles into one piece is sort of the same thing as the next mistake. And that mistake is a little bit more specific. It's not choosing a focal point. You want there to be some visual hierarchy in a lettering illustration, just like there would be in a regular illustration or a photo or anything that looks good. You can think about visual hierarchy in terms of what's the most important, what's the second most important, and then everything else. You don't need any more than 3 levels of visual hierarchy, because if everything has a level, then there's no levels, because it's just pandemonium. So the only way to make something be a focal point is to have it stand out or be different from everything else. If you emphasize everything, nothing is emphasized. I can't emphasize this enough. When you're starting out and drawing letters, it could be fun and you're trying to stylize all the things and do all kinds of fun, cool things that you've seen and you've been inspired by. And you try to make every word equally as loud as the other words. And yeah, it's not going to look good. Let's dial it back a little bit. I was absolutely guilty of this myself. The next mistake that could be absolutely ruining your lettering is, I still have to do a Stinktober drawing for today. What's the prompt again? A spell. What kind of spell can we do? What? Oh yeah, this video is sponsored by Kittl. Kittl is a browser-based graphic design platform built to empower creativity. Maybe we can go on Kittl and find one of their templates to use as a starting point. Or let's see, cursed. Okay, I mean, these aren't too bad, to be honest. They're a little bit better than I was expecting. This is pretty cool. All right, this will probably work as a starting point, but I need a spell to replace this text. How about a spell to draw a cool skull? Spirit of failure, take a seat. Let me draw a skull with heat. That'll do. Spirit of failure. Take a seat. Let me draw a... So we can just delete that. Maybe we can find a better font for skull. Kittle's design tools made it super easy to just play around with different fonts and move things around and just edit the template as much as I wanted to. They have a wild amount of fonts that I wasted entirely too much time looking through. But as you can see, the templates are really responsive. Anything that's like on a curve, you just change it, automatically snaps back into place. All right, so now I can just download this and send it over to my iPad where I'm gonna draw a skull to put in the middle. I think I'm actually gonna do the lettering as well in my own style, just to make it feel more cohesive. Because this is a spell for a skull with heat, obviously it had to be a flame skull. Then I did some lettering that just felt a little bit more flame-ish to go along with it. I really like the way this turned out, and I don't think it's a layout that I would have done if I didn't start with that template. So actually, I really do like this. Let's bring it back into Kittle and use their mockup tools to see what this would look like as a sweatshirt. Creating mockups in Kittle is super simple. All you do is click on the artboard, and then there's a mockup button. And then you can search through tons of different mockups for all kinds of products. You just add your artwork in, and it automatically like wraps it to whatever you're creating the mockup of, and adds in the shadows and all that stuff. As someone who's done countless mockups over the years in Photoshop with various templates and smart PSDs and layer effects, this was so much easier and so much faster. Try Kittle today for free using the link below. And if you like it, you can use my special promo code CRISPYT, which will get you a 25% discount on all Kittle plans, including annual, for all new users. Thanks, Kittle. The next mistake that could be absolutely ruining your lettering is trying to make your sketches look like nice drawings. Your sketches should look like trash. They should be quick, just iterations. So you can do lots of options and figure out your composition before you go in and start trying to draw some nice, tight letters. Tight sketches waste time and kill experimentation. That part of the process where I'm just like quickly iterating ideas is where I sometimes find the best ideas. And it leads me to new directions because I'm quickly trying a whole bunch of different things, and it makes me think of other ideas. And if I was sitting there trying to just draw something really nice for the sketch, I wouldn't get to that point because I'm too busy thinking about the drawing. We're not thinking about the drawing yet. Thinking about the other stuff that's more important. The sketches are just steps along the way. They're not about the finished piece. They're just ingredients. They're not ingredients. What would you call them? Not like directions, but they're not. They're experimentations. They're experiments. It's like science where you're doing an experiment and you got to try all these different things. Well, I guess science isn't good either because then that's like about precision. This is willy-nilly. This is willy-nilly science. An example of this working out for me recently was when I did this Got to Go hat design. I knew I wanted to do the letters GTG, like gotta go, because I think it's just kind of a funny thing where it's just like, all right, I gotta go. I can't talk to you right now. I thought incorporating a skull would be fun too, because, you know, whenever you can sneak a skull into something, I think that is generally the best practice. I was sketching out these different treatments of GTG and like how they could work together and just playing around. And I noticed on one of these as I was working on it that like it almost was resembling a skull. And then when I did this middle one where I had the skull on the angle with the GTG lettering next to it, I saw that repetition between the I's and then the two G's. And I was like, well, wait a second. What if we merged them into one symbol, the gotta go symbol? And if I was just sitting there trying to draw a really nice G and a T, I wouldn't have gotten to that point from just, you know, playing around quickly. So you got to experiment. That's where Milton Glaser, do you know who he is? He's an iconic designer, illustrator. Anyways, I'm pretty sure it was him that had the phrase, the quote, "Drawing is how I think." And that's real. That is, I think that is one of the best quotes I've ever heard. I should draw that. I actually think I've drawn it probably several times. Another very common mistake is making your lettering-based illustration too hard to read. And this could be through a number of different reasons. It could be because the way the words are flowing together start to kind of lose track, or they don't go in a natural way, or you start reading words before you read the other words. You really need to think about how someone is going to read this. And when you're drawing it, you're thinking about all these different things. You're thinking about like how you're drawing letters and stylizing them. And because of that, sometimes you forget about the other stuff of just making it so that someone can read it. A helpful thing you could do is to take your sketch before you start doing a final version and just show it to someone and ask them to read it and see how fast they can read it, or if they can read it at all. And that might tell you if you need to rework it a little bit. Another thing that can make it too hard to read is not just the flow of it, but like how you draw specific letters. When you're stylizing and trying to be playful and do letters in interesting shapes, sometimes beginners will start to exaggerate letters in a way that takes away what makes them stand out from other letters. This is especially important when there are letters that look very similar, but there's just like subtle changes, like a K or an X. If you're doing some like wiggliness or like some like flame letters or, anything that's sort of like changing that shape, a K could very easily start to look like an X and vice versa. This could be the same with like a D or an O. You got to make sure you're emphasizing the thing that makes that letter unique from other letters. Another common mistake is using random colors without purpose. You really want to use colors to your advantage to help with the emphasis and also help sort of leading the eye in a composition so they like know where to look. This can be especially helpful when you are lettering something and really pushing the boundaries of legibility in terms of maybe like baseline shift or like incorporating other elements into the composition. You can use color to sort of guide the eye to where it should go next by linking words with the next word with color, or just using it to like pop out specific areas. If you just use a whole bunch of random colors willy-nilly without a purpose, it can make it harder to read and take away your ability to have that like extra thing to make it even more clear. Something that you can do when you're starting out, if you're not feeling comfortable with colors, is when you start to lay in colors for your composition, start with like, what's your focal point, and maybe choose your loudest color for that. And then think about where else you might use that, if at all. And then from there, slowly start to add in colors. You could also think about it in terms of visual hierarchy and maybe set your color palette based on that. Like, okay, this is my color for my focal point, and then this is my secondary, and then this is everything else. And then you don't have to just do 3 colors. You could have like a range of colors. Maybe it's like your third level of hierarchy, like the everything else stuff could be cool colors, and then your focal points could be warm colors, or the opposite. You can do whatever you want, but colors can be helpful in making things easier to read and look better. A technique you can use when you're starting to plan out lettering-based composition is to break it up how you would read it. Breaking up a phrase how you would read it is a great way to start planning out your composition. Let me talk about this in regard to this hot mess that I drew many, many years ago. The quote is, I think it's just something that I thought. I had this really great idea, but I forgot. Now, there's so many issues here that we've already talked about. Here, I'm pretty much emphasizing all the words. There's no clear visual of hierarchy. Everything is the focal point. The drawing is pretty bad too. And like, idea is one of the more important things here. And you can barely see it. It's just like, I had this really great, but nothing. Why? I'm not communicating anything clearly in this. So I thought this would be a good thing to revisit and see how I would do it differently now that I'm better than that. So if we start breaking it down in terms of like ideas or like how you would read it, and you think about what the important things are. So it's like, great idea, but I forgot. So if I get great idea to be like the focal point that's just like, boom, right in the center. And then I had this is just sort of like a throwaway line. It's not that important. It just sort of like introduces the idea. So that can be a small little banner up at the top or just like a simple treatment. And then the but I forgot, I feel like should be almost as important as a great idea, but just sort of coming from that. That's sort of like our second level of visual hierarchy. So I decided to make really great idea sort of like a lockup that fits together and feels like one thing. And I'm thinking I'll use color to keep it together as well. Although the lettering styling is a little bit different because I'm sort of like mixing script. They're all sort of the same because they're all sort of like curvy and flow together and fit together as a unit. So I'm thinking of this as like a thing and not just random words. It's almost like a little logo type situation. And then I was thinking the forgot thing is sort of like, you know, poof, we forgot. So maybe it could be like in a cloud, and that cloud could be like a structure to house that whole phrase and be a visual element to like put that idea together and make it easier to read too, because it's like all contained in there. So you're not like trying to figure out where to go next, you know, because it's in that bubble. And then again, just really simple for I had this because it's not any part of about the great idea and forgetting about the great idea. And then for color, I went with a cooler tones for everything else besides that main focal point, which was the really great idea where I just used oranges and yellows. So that really jumps out. You see it right away. And then everything else has its place. And wow, can we look at the comparison from my old one to my new one? Come a long way. And I have learned a lot and done a lot of practicing. Which brings me back to that. What was that thing I was doing earlier on? What was that phrase? Oh yeah, talent is a lie. It's true. I feel like I keep coming back to this lately, but like people just think, oh, you're so talented. It's like, well, no, I've just done a lot of drawing. No one is just like, oh, they're talented at lettering and can just immediately draw all these letters and composition or even illustration in general. People may have an inclination towards it, and because they like it and enjoy it so much, they're more inclined to do it more, and that makes them better. I don't know why I keep coming back to this. I think my point is that don't draw something and then be like, oh, this sucks. I'm not talented. I wish I had the talent. You got it. You can do it. You just got to keep practicing. I did daily drawings for 14 years and posted them online every day. Like that great idea one. That was something that I put on the internet and was like, look at this cool drawing I made. Gotta start somewhere. That wasn't even an early one, I don't think. I think that was pretty well into that journey. Have you heard me talk about the daily drawing project? Because man, that did everything for me. Completely transformed my life and my career, made me better at drawing. It everything, my whole career, everything, my whole life is thanks to that daily drawing project. You could watch a video about that right here if you want. I think it's a pretty good one. Or if you just want to keep going with the lettering, I've got a whole playlist of lettering stuff that you could check out over here. So either one of these I think is going to be a good option for you. I think this has been a good talk. Thanks for sponsoring this video, Kittle. And I'll see you all real soon. Don't make these lettering mistakes. Or you can and then just fix them after the fact, because you know I made plenty of these mistakes before. Probably still do sometimes. All right, letter lovers. No, that's gross. What letter? All right, letter buddies. High five. High five, letter buds. Letter friends. Type friends. Font friends. But they're not fonts. People always say, "Hey, what font you like? I like your fonts." It's not a font. They're not fonts. It's lettering. Did I finish? Are we done? Are you still here? You still watching this? Okay. I'm gonna go.